The completely unredacted deposition from Ghislaine Maxwell has now been made public. This isn't some vague rumor making the rounds or hushed talk behind closed doors. It's officially released. And what those pages contain is something that no royal household, no matter how powerful the prince or sophisticated the public relations machine, could ever have braced itself for. There is a detailed record, a roster, essentially a chart of relationships that directly identifies Prince Andrew along with 8 additional prominent individuals closely linked to royal networks. 8 specific names, each one like a concealed entrance, and one of those entrances reportedly leads directly into the unexplained period of Meghan Markle's life that has remained unaccounted for. The palace chose not to release any statement rejecting the claims. They didn't dispatch anyone to speak on their behalf. Instead, they simply went still, as though an entire realm had been struck by a sudden, freezing winter in one swift moment. What used to be mere speculation has ceased to be that. It is no longer just chatter spreading across online spaces. This has become a concrete, undeniable development, an overwhelming flood of facts capable of completely shattering the entire carefully constructed royal storyline. And the instant those 8 names came to light, everyone within the protected walls of the palace understood a chilling reality. The version of events they had presented to the entire globe might not withstand the revelation that had just been set free. Whenever a serious threat approaches a royal institution, they never raise their voices. They don't rush around in disarray. What they do is fall completely quiet. It's a silence so intense that it almost feels as though the atmosphere itself has paused in anticipation. Within the confines of Buckingham Palace, every protocol designed to eliminate any remaining trust was immediately activated. Prince William, a person who typically remains composed even when facing intense scrutiny, cut off the very last channels of contact with Montecito. There would be no further texts, no more careful, polite cautions, no additional attempts to appeal to logic. The reason is straightforward. When facing a genuine danger, you don't sit down to bargain. You isolate and control it. At the same time, thousands of miles distant, the residents in Montecito registered the sudden change in atmosphere. Harry moved back and forth restlessly, resembling someone witnessing his entire existence slowly erode, particle by particle. Over many years, he had convinced himself that he had saved a woman the world had unfairly judged. He saw himself as the guardian of a true life partner, sheltering her from a harsh and unforgiving establishment. Yet now, with news reports inching ever closer to mentioning that single, devastating term, trafficking, a part of him shattered internally. The old question that once haunted him, why did the palace hold such disdain for her, had been replaced by a far more painful one. What information did the palace possess that I was never told? In the span of just one morning, the beautiful narrative they had lived by fractured. And the wave of fear wasn't triggered by Meghan's scheduling yet another television appearance. The real source of alarm stemmed from the growing suspicion that, through marriage, the royal family had unknowingly become entangled with something far more perilous than petty conflicts, media mishaps, or domestic disputes. They were beginning to worry that they had linked themselves to an entire interconnected system. To grasp the reason the palace now trembles, it's necessary to venture into the hidden chapter of this tale that they desperately hoped would remain concealed forever. The section tucked away behind luxurious yacht sundecks, exclusive venues behind velvet barriers, secluded private accommodations, and premium air travel that never aligned with the income Meghan earned at the time. The 8 individuals of royal standing listed in the Maxwell documents are far from ordinary members of the aristocracy. Together they constitute a tight-knit group, an intricate lattice made up of princes from Europe and the Middle East, precisely the sort of nobility who drift effortlessly among penthouses in Monaco, skyscrapers in Dubai, and lavish yachts cruising the Mediterranean, all without ever putting their signature on official state documents. Their wealth allows them to vanish or materialize whenever they choose. Their influence permits them to interact freely without attracting press attention. They belong to that rare category of individuals who never face a shortage of funds, only a potential shortage of hidden truths. During the period of Meghan's life that remains vague and undocumented, the hazy stretch running from 2013 through 2016, her movements align precisely with the locations this particular group regularly visited. Places such as Istanbul, Phuket, St. Bart's, the French Riviera, and the exclusive yachting routes where personal identities become irrelevant and strict privacy regulations simply dissolve. Mainstream outlets portrayed her as nothing more than an ambitious actress working her way up. Yet the picture emerging from the transcripts tells a markedly different story. Here is a woman showing up in luxurious environments well beyond her financial reach, adorned with precious pieces she could never have purchased herself, captured in photographs standing next to individuals she theoretically should never have encountered. And then there is Soho House, which the transcript reframes entirely, not as a fashionable gathering spot for artistic types, but as a kind of intake facility, a selective mechanism where driven newcomers were brought into contact with those considered untouchable, a setting where talent wasn't scouted but deliberately chosen. Every fragment of evidence laid out across this picture leads inescapably toward a single interpretation. Meghan's rise did not adhere to the usual patterns of Hollywood success. Instead, it followed the patterns of a carefully orchestrated network. And should even a single one of those 8 royal figures cross paths with her journey at any point, what the monarchy faces is no longer a manageable public relations crisis. They are confronting a serious security violation. A violation whose origins stretch back many years before Harry first entered the space where she presented herself simply as an ordinary young woman from Los Angeles. Long before the royal marriage took place, long before her name became known worldwide, Meghan navigated a series of destinations that bore no relation to the balance in her accounts. Istanbul, Phuket, St. Bart's. These were discrete corners of the planet where immense wealth moved invisibly and where privacy protections could be shaped almost at will. Such locations were never realistic vacation choices for an actress earning a moderate income from television work. They functioned as key nodes, environments, where individuals arrived unknown and departed carrying valuable associations they never felt compelled to justify. And at every unusual threshold she crossed, the same figure kept reappearing. Marcus. He held no role as a close companion. He wasn't a relative. He represented something entirely different, the one who controlled entry to a realm the vast majority of people never glimpse. Then comes Soho House again, presented publicly as a stylish venue for creative professionals, yet functioning internally much like an elegant screening process. A location where entry wasn't achieved through merit alone, it was bestowed. A setting in which those showing promise received refinement, while those already well-positioned were quietly connected to figures holding even greater power. Marcus handled the seating arrangements. Marcus coordinated the discreet encounters. Marcus traveled alongside her in private vehicles, well before she ever shared space with royalty. None of these moments happened by chance. They were intentional arrangements. Looking back, the unclear span from 2013 to 2016 no longer resembles a period of free-spirited exploration. It begins to appear far more like deliberate groundwork, subtle shaping, strategic placement, all arranged well in advance of the moment Harry entered the picture. Financial records can be erased. Mobile devices can be destroyed. Travel documentation can be altered. Certain elements, however, resist every effort to make them vanish, especially those that shine. The way Meghan lived prior to entering royal life never balanced when examined closely. Neither the luxury items, nor the yacht access, nor the constant first-class travel added up based on her known earnings. Someone else was covering those costs, and the direction of that support points toward an unusual form of exchange. One that originates not from financial institutions, but from high-end jewelers. The pair of earrings from Chopard emerged as the most striking piece of evidence. They were exceptionally uncommon and extraordinarily costly, almost as if they carried their own narrative within their facets. They would surface, then disappear, then surface again at times that never quite matched the publicly stated timeline. Initially, the explanation was that they had been loaned, later that they had been presented as a gift. Then that account shifted once more. The reason for the changes matters deeply. Diamonds, after all, cannot fabricate their own history. Their provenance adheres to them as surely as a unique mark. Images have surfaced implying that Meghan may have worn them prior to the date they were supposedly given, prompting an unsettling inquiry. Who exactly handed those stones to her, and for what purpose? Should even one name among the 8 royals link back to whoever provided them, those earrings cease to be mere adornments. They transform into documentation, brilliant, unyielding proof of a connection that existed well before the romantic story began. Proof that her first meeting with Harry was anything but accidental. Rather, it formed one segment of a longer route that had been carefully prepared long before he allowed himself to fall in love. In the past, the controversy surrounding Prince Andrew appeared entirely disconnected from the more reserved love story involving Harry. Two distinct chapters, two different limbs growing from the same family tree. Yet when the timelines are placed side by side, unsettling alignments begin to emerge. It is already widely known that Andrew once sent an email to Ghislaine Maxwell requesting the company of certain companions for a private weekend event. For a long time, the public viewed this as Andrew's isolated personal failing. But what changes when the group from which he drew those companions shares significant overlap with the social spheres Meghan inhabited during those undocumented years? In that moment, her televised assertion that she scarcely recognized Prince Andrew starts to lose its footing. How plausible is it that she circulated within his immediate environment without ever becoming aware of the individual who essentially resided at its center? And then there is talk of a confidential file, the internal assessment that William is said to have examined carefully at the time Harry expressed his intention to propose marriage. That file reportedly detailed her travel history, her membership in exclusive venues, the trail of valuable jewelry, and certain names that prompted William to advise his brother calmly, "Take your time with this decision." The tone carried no arrogance. It held no trace of envy. It was simply a measured caution delivered in the restrained manner of royalty, a caution that Harry chose to disregard. In previous moments when difficulties began closing in on Meghan, a familiar pattern always emerged. A distant, slightly unclear photograph featuring Archie would appear. A news item would highlight Lilibet's royal status. A tender family scene would be shared at precisely the right instant. The children consistently serve as protective barriers. Brief glimpses of purity deployed to divert the force of criticism. But the current situation has changed fundamentally. This is no longer a matter of shaping public perception. This concerns the continuation of the royal line itself. The traditions governing monarchies stretch back further than the buildings that house them. Among those traditions, one stands out above all others in its clarity and force. A child recognized as royal must be born directly from the body of the royal mother. Should that fundamental condition fail to hold, every associated privilege, rank, and historical position vanishes immediately. Over many years, subtle doubts lingered in the background. Why did every image of the children seem taken from such a great distance? Why were the circumstances of their births guarded with greater secrecy than matters of national security? Why did everything connected to them remain vague, concealed, and off-limits? Those quiet uncertainties now resonate with much greater volume, because a royal house facing existential pressure becomes one that insists upon absolute clarity. It begins to verify every detail, even aspects that no one previously thought could ever require examination. When the established facts fail to align with the presented narrative, the titles are withdrawn. Should Meghan decline to provide cooperation, that very refusal supplies the necessary confirmation. She fully comprehends what hangs in the balance. It extends beyond mere image or standing. It touches the precise position her children occupy within the royal structure, the last remaining foundation she possesses. And for the first time, she grasps that the palace possesses the authority to remove even those foundations. With the mounting tension, noticeable shifts appear in Harry's behavior. He speaks less. He seems unsettled. He wanders through the gardens of Montecito, looking like someone desperately attempting to recall his former self. The emergence of those names from the Maxwell documents fundamentally altered the entire situation. He was no longer simply a spouse. He had become an individual standing dangerously close to the fallout from a reality he had never fully perceived. Out of public view, the palace takes deliberate action. There are no dramatic declarations, no explicit ultimatums, only profound quiet. The sort of quiet capable of drawing a prince back to his origins without uttering a single syllable. A discrete pathway is established, reaching toward the earlier version of Harry known as Captain Wales, the identity that existed prior to constant media attention, prior to turmoil, prior to division. Preparations are made for a secure location. A peaceful property, situated well away from journalists, distant from the glow of Los Angeles, removed from the influence that has directed him for so long. The strategy remains straightforward. Harry makes the journey by himself, citing family obligations. Upon arrival in the United Kingdom, once he crosses into British legal territory, the entrance seals shut. Divorce proceedings will not be initiated in California. They will be launched in London, governed by legal standards that Meghan cannot influence. She receives no invitation to participate. She is offered no opportunity to discuss conditions. She discovers the development in the same impersonal manner that an actress in Hollywood learns she has lost a role through a brief communication left at the entrance. In that instant, the process of removal commences. A prince is carefully drawn away from the ruins of a narrative he had never realized was being constructed all around him. On the day that removal concludes successfully, Meghan turns to the sole instrument still available to her. She offers the prospect of private journals, confidential revelation.